Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Middlesex Dressing Room Reunions, a chance to go inside the home dressing room at Lord's over the years. This week it's 1975 to 1985 and the lineup is fantastic for this one. They managed to end a 29-year wait for the championship. They won 4 championships in that time, plus one shared in 77, the Gillette Cup, the NatWest Trophy and the Benson and Hedges Cup. So the team that we've got representing that era on this screen in front of you is Mike Selvey, John Emburey, Mike Brearley, Mike Gatting, Clive Radley, Roland Butcher, Wayne Daniel, and Norman Cowans. Gents, thanks very much for your time. Much appreciated. It was take 23, as you might have guessed that one from Norman's reaction at the bottom of the screen. Gents, thanks for your time. Gat and Embers have done this already and hopefully enjoyed it. It was good fun catching up in the dressing room. Gat, I'll start with you. This was the beginning of your era. You did the end of an era. We've split what was the Middlesex golden era in two.
Yeah, I mean, it was for us. It was certainly a very harsh beginning. I mean, the dressing room itself. I mean, I suppose we started there 73 and then did 74. 75 was when we got to 2 finals, and I ended up sharing 12th man, I think, with Gouldy in one of the finals. And I just remember in certainly against Leicester, we got bowled out sadly pretty quickly. But the one against Lancashire, where we might have won, Mike Smith was standing at mid-on and Clive Lloyd hit what I'd say a very poor off-drive for him, which sort of looped to Mike Smith at sort of, I think it must have been either mid-on or mid-off. And he sort of, was it mid-on, Rad, was it? Yeah. And I remember seeing him there thinking, is he going to move? And he didn't move, and he didn't sort of walk in and catch it. He actually tried to stand there, and then it didn't quite get there. And he sort of got lower and lower on his knees, and then he couldn't get his hands under it. It hit his things and popped out. And Clive Lloyd managed to go and get some runs, and we lost that final too. But it did show, certainly, from what had gone on before, with the results of Middlesex, Breers had decided that we were going to be a little bit fitter than most, that sort of 1% and a bit more. And I suppose one of the funniest memories I remember is when I say funny, it was a bit harsh on JT and Fred, but it was doing some training at Barclays Bank, which Breers decided we were going to do pre-season, and it was only for a week. And I remember turning up as I must have been about 17 or 18, and there were a few youngsters around, Embers, and I mean we hadn't got Wayne there yet, but this was sort of 75-ish, and Fred came down. These tracksuit bottoms must have come out of the loft somewhere. There were green flashes and that. And we had a young Graham Barlow who'd just, been backwards and forwards to Loughborough, and he was going to train us. And Fred and JT, I mean, it was just hilarious trying to watch them do these shuttles and charging around doing sit-ups and squat thrusts and everything. And it was one of those sort of start of an era. For me, just seeing people interacting at different levels was quite fascinating. So for me, there and then you saw very closely from the dressing room, people in finals, how they reacted and whatever. And then on the other hand, seeing people just starting another season, but in a very, very different way to what they were used to, which was just turning up for 3 weeks of nets. This time it was a week of training, and it was very, very different. And that's when I think the fun started, and you could see that things were going to change, and there was a new era about to take place.
I started the year before, really, but with winning the second 11 championship. And so coming through were you, Gat, there was Gouldy, Graham Barlow, Butch. Quite a few others.
Nigel Ross, Martin Vernon.
And Martin Vernon, and lots of promising young players. It seemed to me that it was the end of an era, because around that time, JT finished in 75. Fred finished end of 76 or 76?
81.
81.
Did he stay? Fred was there till 81.
Well, I mean, he went off to.
He played in 82 in that match.
Well, that's what I meant. Yeah,
but he went off to Surrey, didn't he? And Half and Eric Russell and John Price all finished about that time. So there were a lot of young players coming in, and really terrific players, and also, of course, 75, the stick, Alan Arthur Jones, who we got from Somerset on his way to New Zealand to emigrate. And we phoned him up and he's decided to stay. And I always remember Brian Close's comments, you know. Did you have any trouble with Both, Ian Botham or Viv Richards? Viv and Ian, he said, and Joel, he said, lovely lads, but that bloody Jones. Anyway, so he made a huge difference, Jonah. And
he was a revelation, wasn't he? Because I've never seen somebody who was so contrary in that he was the most uncoordinated person in everything he did until he started running into bowl. And he became an athlete. It was astonishing.
Yeah.
Especially with all the metal in his back as well. I mean, you think how many screws and joints and his corset, and you know, and he'd run in, and you'd have to almost wheel him out. He was that heavy because he had so much metal in his body. But he was a fantastic bowler. I mean, he was quite incredible. And then, of course, when Wayne came along as well, blimey, that was just bliss, especially when you're standing in the slips.
I think it was the start, really, of a good squad of bowlers there with two spinners. You had three seamers in Selvey, Jones and Daniel. Yeah. And it was a well-balanced side that continued on, and we had a few years together before there were international calls, and that broke up. And then when it did start to sort of break up, others coming along, Norman and Simon Hughes in 1980. And then it sort of regurgitated again, or not regurgitate, but the success continued.
I think in 76, I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure we had something like 6 bowlers in the top 10 or 12 of the national averages that year.
You had 5 in the top 21, I think.
Well, so I exaggerate a bit, but I'm pretty sure that Norman, Nigel Featherstone.
Feathers was top.
Norman Featherstone was top of the national averages.
He was, yeah,
with about 40 wickets. You know, that's kind of an example of the depth of bowling that there was.
But he didn't get any in the first, I think, 10 championship matches either.
Those times I thought was the players come along at the right time. I think Embers was probably the first of our group to really. Embers came on 71, and I remember late 71. Embers wasn't like here 72, and then really after that, as you said, you had a whole group of youngsters who were all playing around the same age in the second 11. So the good thing really for Middlesex was that a lot of those players finally came through, which meant that they could really be a part of the team for quite a while.
I think Butch also, myself and Philip Edmonds joined in 71 well, and both were, I think Selvey had finished university, Selvey, if I'm right, or still at university. And
I finished university in 71 when I left Surrey. I left Surrey because fundamentally they don't want me, really.
Likewise.
Yeah. Well, it was quite interesting because, you know, I remember Arthur McIntyre saying, now we've got Horse and we've got Jackers and we've got Bob. And I knew they weren't going to have Bob because Bob was going to Warwickshire, and I knew that. And I had an agreement with Bob that he wouldn't announce that he was leaving the club until I kind of fixed up where I was going. Which is always going to be Middlesex, which was the county of my birth anyway. But I'm pretty sure I got in 71 the second game. I got a hat trick against Middlesex at Edmonton too, including Brearley actually. And that kind of, you know, that's a bit later. That's 77. That's 77. That was a good one. That wasn't it. That was the old bubble cut. Yeah. I used to get that done in Wellingborough in a hair salon in Wellingborough on a Wednesday, because Wednesday it was like when the old girls used to go, and it was cheaper. So I used to go there to get me perm done. That flowery kind of thing they used to put in you and sit on those big dryers with women's own. It was great.
Fellas, what was it? I mean, when they won the title a couple of years back in 2016, that was the end of a 23-year wait. And I remember at the time the relief at the club was something else. What was it like in 76? You know, that was a 29-year wait, wasn't it?
It was magnificent, wasn't it? I mean, and it was an extraordinary summer because it was the hottest summer they'd ever been, or something. The wet, especially in July and August. And we won about 6 or 7 matches on the trot, I think, with 4 spinners sometimes. I mean, Fred, Embers, Philip, and Feathers, and with Alan Jones and Selv to get a few out at the beginning, and it suited us down to the ground, and it was a terrific run, wasn't it? I mean, it was just fantastic.
Which was the year, Selv, that we shared it with Ken?
77 with Ken. 77.
Shared, yeah.
And that was the year that we needed another batting bonus point.
Yeah, Liverpool.
Yeah,
Blackpool, we got 147.
Blackpool, wouldn't it, Selv?
You got out LBW.
Well, I got given out LBW, as you well know. With Jack Simmons round, we were one short of the bonus point.
We were one.
I thought it was
Jack Simmons bowled it round the wicket, bowled me an arm ball from round the wicket, which was like it's a gimme almost. A gimme for you, Gatting Bugs, not for me. And I missed it. It hit me on pad LBW. There's no way.
You still reckon that was Tin Pan Alley, wasn't it?
It was Tin Pan, and
Yeah,
there was some things that went our way that summer and things that didn't go our way that summer, actually. So one of the things that went our way was, the incredible, as near as damn it, one-day win that we had, which was crucial because I was against Surrey. That was crucial because although on the second day when we started play just before tea, we bitched about it because it wasn't going to be a one-day game anymore, a one-innings match, which it would have been had it started after tea, and we only bowled 2 overs and then abandoned. We actually ended up getting full bonus point, full bowling points from that game. So we actually got a lot of points from that. Where we lost points, which was curious, was one game we had against Gloucester, where we were chasing a target, and it might have been, I'm not sure it wasn't Tin Pan again. Miscalculated the overs, and instead of 13 overs, we got 12. We ended up 6 short or something.
Yeah, that's right. 70 or something.
And the other one, curiously, was Abbeydale, when we put 4 Yorkshire players in hospital.
Well, Wayne did.
Well, no, that's not true, actually. 2 to Wayne, 1 to Jonah.
You wrote on his thumb, didn't you?
Really?
Yeah.
Harney Sidebottom's still got a steel plate in his arm on that.
But the point about that was that we didn't get the bowling points.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
And Briz, I remember you taking a catch between your foot and your hand and your foot. I can't remember who that was. You caught someone out. I think the crowd weren't happy about it. They said it had bounced, and you trapped it between your hand and your foot.
Yeah.
Everything under control.
You went across waving your fist at him. I hadn't seen that side of you before, Briz. They were shouting, just because you wear socks, you think you haven't.
Just because you wear socks, no need to think yourself so clever, Brearley.
That 77 season for me was very much a trial season in many ways, because my first full season, and Brearley's giving me my cap on the pitch that morning at Lord. But I was coming back from a back injury, pretty serious back injury after the West Indies tour of England, 76 tour of England. And remember coming to Lord's, going into the Middlesex office. And I think Arthur Flower, he was the secretary at the time.
Yeah.
And he said, Wayne, we got to get you down to the doctor's clinic, Bill Tucker. Got to get you down to see Bill Tucker, let him take a look at you. And I remember that morning going down to the clinic and nervous, really nervous, thinking, oh my goodness, what is what the doctor going to find? And, am I going to get a clean bill of health? Am I going to be able to play cricket? What is he going to see? And obviously what he's going to report back to the club. And went down to the clinic that morning, and Dr. Tucker said, well, you look all right. You look pretty good. You can go there and play. And I remember starting the season very gingerly, because I thought, let me just try to work myself in. If I remember correctly, it was a fairly wet season too, wasn't it? That 77 season. It was. It certainly wasn't like 76 when we were on tour. When I was on tour with the West Indies. But I remember working myself very gingerly, trying to work very gingerly into the season, and always had in the back of my memory comments that I heard from people back in the Caribbean, like Keith Boyce, who played for Essex, Van Beholder, who was down at Worcester, that it was going to be a lot of hard work and you really got to be fit. And I thought, well, I got to try and get through this for a season and then, you know, look forward to the rest, see what happens from there on in. And it went quite well and picked up a couple of wickets. I think it was 71 wickets in that season, I think. And we won the championship with Kent. I remember the game up at against Lancashire. Myself just outlining all the finer details. But that was certainly a good start for me. You know, coming into the team and on a winning note and winning or sharing the championship, but part winners. And that gave me a lot of confidence. And I certainly enjoyed it. So that was very important too. The enjoyment, you know, I mean, the hard work was always going to be there, but the enjoyment was key. And that was a really good beginning for me.
I think you were lucky to start in 77 because, I mean, as Gatting members would tell you, when you went to see Bill Tucker, the first thing Bill would show you, he had on his mantelpiece in a jar, the cartilage of Dennis Compton.
Right, yeah.
That didn't feel fast bowlers, I wouldn't imagine, with a lot of confidence. When he was so proud of this cartilage that he preserved for all these years.
No, we won the Gillette Cup that year, didn't we?
Yes. Was it Embers that got hit for the biggest six I've ever seen on any cricket ground?
Michael Llewellyn. Richard Llewellyn.
Amber, sorry, mate.
I do remember that because I remember I bowled 11 overs and I think I was a 1 for 23.
Yes.
And then I got taken off. And then Mike brought me back on very late in the innings for that last over. Remember going for a couple of runs, and then the last ball that I bowled ended up going on top of that turret above the
commentary
dining room or the committee dining room. It was a bloody big hit. That's all I remember.
I remember catching one off Feathers down at Long On, and it went up quite a long way. Mike Llewellyn as well, I think it was. He got out to Feathers, and I caught this one down at I think it must have been Long On. He went up miles, and as I caught it, this bloke from Glamorgan ran on with a can of beer and said, "You better have a drink. That's a bloody good catch," sort of thing. And sadly, the bloke got thrown out. You know, it was one of those where if you came on the pitch, you got thrown out. And I was trying to sort of say to this bloke, the steward, "Oh, don't throw him out. He's you know, it's very nice to offer a drink, you know, for catching a catch." But you know, that's what I remember. That very sad. Very sad.
That was the game where Kevin Lyons spent the day in Paddington Nick, didn't he? He took 2 tickets down to the Grace Gate, and they thought he was a ticket tout.
Ticket tout.
I didn't know that.
But a lot happened that match, though. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. That's a cool one. That's a cool one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get dropped first or second ball, Raddy?
First ball, College King, straight in, knee height. I think Breers got out. I was in the bog. Breers got out. Did you, Breers? First, very early on. Then I got rushing out there, and Nick Nashy straight to Collis, and he downed it, and the rest is history, as I say.
Yeah.
But you got a little scrappy 60 or something, didn't you? The usual.
More like 87, wasn't it?
Well, it's hard to tell whether you've got a scrappy 60 or an 80.
And the gold medal for it's just set up. I tell you.
Never went the bowl.
You know, Rad would know what exact number he scored. It wouldn't be one out. It wouldn't be one out.
I'll tell you something about Rad that not many people understand this or realise this. That in that 75 season, when we got to both finals, Clive, I'm pretty sure he'll confirm this because he'll know this. Is the only person ever to score 100 in each of the 4 competitions in the same year.
Is that right?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up.
There you go, folks, you see. Quite something,
I was going to leave it another 5 minutes before I brought that up. Well,
well, I often ask people that, and you'd be surprised at the names that you get lumped in with.
Like Gordon Greenwich and people like that. Who could
Harry Richards.
Clive Lloyd.
Oh, good. Funny.
Nice one.
81. 81's the year that often I get a lot of feedback from fans talking about the golden era, as we're calling it. But 81 was the year that everyone talks about the 12 internationals. Every week there was always an international sat on the sidelines. It was an incredibly strong period, wasn't it? For almost unheard of, really, to have that strength in depth.
What do we do? Did we win it that year? 81,
No, we didn't.
That was the year. That was the year we got docked points.
We came
Chilton Taylor, wasn't it? Wasn't registered. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Alan Burridge
got the bullet, didn't he? Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And because we lost Tom.
Yeah, that was Tomo played part of the season.
Half the season, yeah.
He had a belly strain, a tummy strain or something.
Hernia.
He's got a hernia.
Yeah. But Sal, I'm sure most of you guys will remember the session we had at Lord's against Somerset when Viv
came
out and we tried to knock his head off, and he kept sort of scattering a few people in the tavern. But I thought that was a really exhilarating session. Not sure quite how long it went on for, but that period where I probably sent them 5 or 6 to Viv. Tomo sent them maybe about the same. Butch was at cover point. Graham Barlow was somewhere in the covers, and the ball was just passing inches away from them, and they couldn't touch it. But I enjoyed that season with Tom. The little time spent with Tomo was so encouraging too, and he would always inspire me to sort of try to keep up pace with him, try to send it down as quickly as he would send it down, which was pretty futile in the end.
The only thing I remember about Tomo was we were being sponsored by Austin Reed, weren't we then?
Yeah.
And we got our 500 quid worth of vouchers. I'd saved them all up to the sales and got a couple of shirts and a pair of socks. He went straight down there and bought a white suit.
My recollection of that game, Wayne, is somewhat different to yours, because you and Jeff Thompson were bowling at the speed of light to the opening batsman, and I remember the slip fielders and the keeper being 30, 40 yards back.
Yeah.
And they were fending and pushing and edging and whatever. And Viv walked in, and then suddenly you and Tomo started bowling half volleys. I remember you standing at mid-on, encouraging Tomo to give him one. And Tomo's reply was, "You see how this guy's hitting this ball?" I thought at some stage, Wayne, that you had pulled the ladder up there, and I'm surprised that Brace didn't take you off, because you started bowling a lot of half volleys.
I think Tom had bowled a couple of short ones that disappeared. And I thought that if Viv is looking for it, he's on the back foot looking for it, let me try to go up on a good length and see if I can find the edge or get one between bat and pad. And that didn't work. That didn't work either. But I remember saying to Tomo, look, we got to try and hit the length. Try to hit the length and see if he would edge one. And Tomo went up. It wasn't a half volley. Tomo went up on a fullish length, and Viv drove it straight back into his chest. And Tomo buckled over on the pitch. And Viv slaggered down to him and looked at him. And I went over to Tomo and said, "Tomo, are you all right?" And Tomo said something like, "Well, you caused that, you caused this, This is your fault, Something like that.
I'll tell you something about
and Harry Sharp, who was really terrific. And Harry Sharp, in many ways, was someone who inspired me. Whenever I ride back for the season, Harry Sharp would come and look at me and look me up and down, and he would always assess, you look pretty fit for this season. You don't look so fit, my son. You better try and get fit early, something like that. But I remember Harry Sharp saying at the end of that match in the pub, in the Lord's Tavern, Harry Sharp said, "Wow, that was some cricket. I enjoyed every minute of it. I really enjoyed every minute of that." Something, and when you got sort of Harry's blessing, you thought, well, this is really something.
It was good.
Yeah. I'll tell you something about Tomo, right, which I found really interesting, because there's always a contrast for me between Wayne, you, and Tomo, because Wayne, you didn't know how to bowl slow. You couldn't bowl slow ball if you tried. It was impossible.
You're absolutely right.
Tomo tried to bowl fast, and there was some days where Tomo couldn't bowl fast. He tried, but he couldn't. There was a timing thing, a rhythm thing. Tomo wasn't a strength bowler. He was a rhythm bowler. People didn't understand that. I remember one game at Essex, it was actually, and I can remember Brearley standing at slip and going, "Come on, Tomo, come on." He walked back past me. He said, "You think you never got effing naught, wouldn't you?" And I am trying. But I reckon he bowled fast. There's 3 occasions in that spell. When I say fast. First one was against the Australians.
It was at Lords.
Yeah.
That was
Graham Wood in the Wellington Hospital in the first over.
He did. Yeah.
Second one was Hampshire in a B&H game at Lords.
Yeah.
And the third one was the one that Wayne mentioned there against Somerset.
Yeah.
And that morning, it was a Saturday morning, and he bowled at Viv for 90 minutes. And I remember it extremely well, because I remember thinking, this is just like Tomo to Viv, almost exclusively Tomo to Viv. And it was the most exhilarating time I've ever had watching on the cricket field. It's like a privilege to watch somebody playing the game at a level that was so far above anything that I could possibly aspire to. And I watched this going on, and Viv was taking him on, and he was ducking out the way, and he'd take him on again. And Viv was not out at the end of it. There were no winners, no losers. It was a great, great contest.
Absolutely.
Tomo, a few years later, said to me, that's the fastest he ever bowled on a slow pitch, which I thought was great.
Yeah. It wasn't a quick pitch at all. You're right.
No. But at the other end, I was bowling a roebuck.
That's entertaining.
A roebuck. We should say roebuck was keeping Viv away from me, you see.
I remember that game as a youngster in the score box at Lords. I was on scoreboard duty, and I just remember watching Tomo and Wayne bowling at Lords. I was so inspired by it, because there was Viv, one of the best batsmen in the world, against 2 top bowlers. And I remember seeing Viv play a shot. This shot was so unreal. He sort of, like, it was shaped to come forward, and the ball wasn't quite there, so he just rocked back and punched it through mid-off like a tracer bullet. From the, I think Tom was bowling from the pavilion end, I think. And I just remembered Wayne, running in, and it's almost like they were bowling in slow motion when Viv was batting. And then, then Selv came on at the other end, and I remember Selv a lot slower, and it was wobbling it. And Viv couldn't quite get the ball, kept feeling for it. And I thought, what a contrast, It's almost like Selv is not challenged, so I'm just shooting for it. And then
I think Selv got him out, didn't he?
I think that game, Selv actually got him caught behind somewhere, because it was amazing game of cricket watching from the scoreboard as a youngster watching that sort of class of cricket.
Yeah.
I just remember that on that same thing, that match against Australia. I mean, Tomo was pretty upset, wasn't he, Breers, about not being selected. He was furious. And I remember it was just, I think it must be just after tea. We had about sort of an hour and a half at them or something. And Tomo, I think, disappeared somewhere, down the physio's room or something. He had a hernia as well at the time. And he kept pushing his tummy back in. And he said, no, I'm going to bowl at this lot. So he went down, I think must have taken a couple of painkillers or something. I'm not sure what. But I tell you what, I think Wayne said to me when he started bowling, he said, "I want some of what he's having," because he was bowling so quick, and it was amazing. And I mean, you could just see the fire in it, and you just wondered. You see the fire in his eyes. It was.
He was angry that he was left out.
He was angry. He was very angry. Yeah.
And that's when he hit Graham Wood, didn't he?
Yeah, he put Wood in the first over.
First over.
Graham Wood smashed it. I mean, it was pretty horrible. Yeah.
But I was the game where I got 4 or 5 catches off Tomo in that. I slipped in that game against the Australians. He was sharp.
Oh, yeah, I was rather disappointed though that he went up and said sorry to Woody.
He didn't like him anyway, I don't think.
Brothers, you know, a lot of guys out here in Barbados, quite often they say to me, you remember the days when your captain, Mike Brearley, was calling for an ambulance at all the cricket grounds? You know, that's something a lot of guys say to me out here. Is it your captain wanted an ambulance or ambulances at most of the cricket grounds?
Oh, you mean? I see what you mean.
You know?
Not in order to take away the batsman that you hit, but in order as a sort of general insurance policy. I think I did.
All right.
Yeah, I think that was it more.
So there was a softer side to your brothers. I mean, you weren't all the hard, tough lieutenant, were you?
No, it was very gentle.
I remember Tomo bowled quick. I think he ended up with 7 for 22, and we lost that game.
The Hampshire game.
And he took some wickets. Yeah. He got 4 quick wickets, and he got taken off. He may have bowled 6 overs or so. And I think he came up to you, Breers, and said, "Hey, Breers, this little bloke here, I haven't bowled to this so-and-so for, he's avoided me, been at the non-strikers end all the time, and he wanted to come on and bowl at him." Yeah. I think he bowled another couple of overs. He didn't get him out because he spent all the time at the non-strikers end game, but he picked up another couple of wickets, and I think David ended up getting 69 or whatever not out. He did, yeah. And winning the game. But he was very, very angry, Tomo, that he didn't get David Turner out that day.
Yeah. I think you might remember this, Diamond, because it was really about you. I think we were playing Lancashire at Lords, and you bowled a very, very quick spell at David Lloyd. I don't know if you remember this. I think you will do, Breers, because then John Abrahams came in and he'd sort of been fending you off and you hit him all over the place, and he finally got out. You got about sort of 5 or 6 in about an hour, and you had bowled really quickly. And John Abrahams came in at number 3, and you bowled one ball at him, and you pulled a hamstring, I think, and you limped off. And I think
there's a bit more to that, I think, Gav, because I remember.
I thought there might have been. That's why I was asking the question.
I think that number 4 or something was Clive. And you got Clive out, and you were very keen to get him out, and you really bowled quick. And but it was just after that he limped off, and I went up to. We were not playing. There was a test match on at the Oval the next day, and I went up to the dressing room to see how Wayne was limping off. And I remember you said to me, Wayne, "That is the end. That is the final end."
Final end of Wayne.
Yeah, final end.
Lloyd didn't he come round to the dressing room at lunchtime and said, "Mr. Daniel, I hope it's nothing too serious," or something, didn't he? Lloyd came in and said something too trivial. That's what it was. Yeah.
You'll remember this at Old Trafford as well, when Wayne bowling from the Stretford end, and we all know Wayne is vigorous follow through, where his knuckles almost hit the floor, and his follow through so low he got. And Clive hit him back, head high, straight. We would have killed if Wayne had a normal follow through. It would have killed him.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember John Player League match Sunday afternoon.
Yeah. And it went flat into the side screen and punched a hole in it, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a trace of bullets, I tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, it traveled. You hit it, the typical Lloydie way, and it went past me like a jet.
Yes.
One of those sort of American jets, that war jets. And it crashed into the side screen. I thought, wow,
Do you remember that game at Old Trafford? Another one. It was, I can't remember was a Sunday League game or it was a cup game.
It was a cup game. It was either Gillette or whatever up there. We always got them.
Yeah. This one was where it got to the point where Lancashire needed 4 to win off the last ball, 3 to tie.
Yes.
And we put everybody on the boundary, didn't we?
Yeah.
Everybody on the boundary. And Wayne was bowling.
Yeah.
And everyone on the boundary, and it was right, the pitch was right over the far side. And I don't know whatever possessed you to do this, Brearley, but you put Alan Arthur Jones at deep extra cover to Frank Hayes, who was batting. And of course, Frank picked him out and hit it straight to Jonah, who fielded it fine. But there's nobody there apart from Wayne, with Wayne's hands like that, so he's not going to wang it in. So Jonah decides that he thinks he computes it, that he can beat the 3 runs by running in with the ball.
Yes.
So they start running. Jonah starts pounding in this very long boundary.
Yes.
And they run 1 and they're running 2. And he eventually got to the edge of the square and realised that he wasn't going to quite make it. So it was going to be peeping there. Might have been Gunner. Gunner's sprinting in from the boundary still. So there's no keeper there. The only person is Wayne standing by the stumps. Jonah has to make a decision. Now he's got to throw it. And the only person he can throw it to is Wayne. Who's standing there like that. These soft hands, Wayne, that you had, And Jonah decides that's a bit of a risk, so I'll lob it. And he tried lobbing it, and of course it just stuck in his hands just a little bit. So instead of lobbing it, flew up in the air. And I think it ended up with Frank Hayes trying to dive in and just falling short on that. I think we just sneaked the game. The sight of Jonah pounding in from the boundary, holding the ball there. So throw it. No, I can do it. I can beat them.
Guys, while we're talking about this period, I would really like us to pay respect to some of our teammates who are no longer with us.
Here.
Harry Sharp, Don Bennett, Johnny Miller, Will Slack, Neil Williams. These guys who were very much part of this. But
definitely.
Talking about Harry Sharp, Harry Sharp, was a guy that I love. I first met Harry when I went to the NCC Young Professionals in 1970, and from then I thought Harry was very, very funny. And then when he became the Middlesex scorer, Wayne would know Sharpie became his mentor, so to speak. And you all know how funny Harry was. And when you were talking about Old Trafford, I remembered the story that Harry was telling me about when he was a Middlesex player. That year he turned up to play at Old Trafford, and he's in the car park taking his kid out of the car, and his fellas come up to him. But before that, let me say that Harry told me that year the previous year he'd scored 100, but it was a rather slow 100. He wasn't the quickest of players, and he's taking his kid out the car, and this guy walks up to him and he says "Excuse me, is this guy Sharp playing today?" Harry said, "Yes, he is." Yes, well, I'm bugging off home because last year he bored me to tears. And that was the sort of guy Harry was. And I guess we're many more stories. And obviously, Mike Smith as well. Smudger was a great team man, great man in the dressing room. And all of those guys who, as I said, no longer with us, they played a great part in our successes.
Yeah, it's a good chat, Butch.
Yeah.
Sharpie, you can wind Sharpie up. You only have to say something to Sharpie like, just on the side, see Clive sitting there and say, Bugs, this Norman Featherstone, he must have played a bit like Compo, I imagine. And Sharpie hear that, and he go, let it go off on one, wouldn't he? Compo, Featherstone.
Nobody compared with Compo, apparently.
Yeah, if I might say a word about Don Bennett, Don would have seen me on the West Indies on the 19 tour, 74. Remember we played a game at Lord's. Gat, you played in that game too, at Lord's Youth Tour, 74. I think it was against a Young England team. And then Don would have seen me on that trip. and would have seen a bit of me too on the West Indies tour in 76. And when I got injured, I came back from that West Indies tour and bowling pretty quick. In fact, I thought I was bowling perhaps even quicker than on the West Indies tour, because I had a guy working with me, a guy that played a lot of cricket for Barbados, a guy called George Rock. George Rock would have played in the era of people like Wes Hall, Charlie Griffith, and those guys. And he was a damn good coach. He was working with me, but I could only bowl 2 overs. And I was bowling, but I thought he was helping me and with my control and things like that. And he was doing good work, really good work with me, but I could only bowl maybe 2 overs, and my back would just start aching, and I would struggle, and I would say, Rocky, George, I can't continue. And then I got diagnosed with this stress fracture and had to be in a brace, had this brace around my back, and couldn't train, couldn't do much. I would just take a shower in the morning, take a walk up the road. I did walking, just little gentle walks up the road. And I think that in that 77, I missed the tour against Pakistan. But Don Bennett came out to Barbados. Don came out to Barbados, I would think, on maybe 2 occasions, at least a couple of occasions. And he came to my home in St. Philip. And he said, look, we want you to come up to Middlesex. We want you to come over. You got to come over. And he was very encouraging, because I was thinking, boy, I'm not going to play cricket anymore. I'm not going to be able to running and bowl anymore. I mean, this is going to be a real struggle. And Don kept saying, no, you got to come, you got to come. We got some good doctors in England. And when you come over, we're going to get somebody to look at you. And that was very encouraging, very helpful, because I had pretty much given up at that stage. I thought, well, this is not going to work for me. And I came over, and then I went down to the clinic and saw Dr. Tucker, Bill Tucker, and played. And, well, the rest is history. But Don was very much keen and pushing me and saying, look, come on, you got to come. You got to do this. You can't give up on yourself. You got to do this. And that was so helpful. So Don was
yeah.
I thought he was a great believer in me, even at that stage.
I can reiterate what you just said there, Wayne, because I had a similar sort of problem with my back back in '79 when I had a stress fracture. And I was in a similar situation where I think, well, am I going to carry on playing cricket? Because no one, would believe that that I had this injury, but eventually was diagnosed with stress fracture. And I remember being despondent. And Don did exactly the same thing. He said to me, he rang me up at home and said, look, why don't you come down to Finchley indoor nets and can have a chat. And I did. I went down, and he said, "Look, we've got a lot of faith in you. I think you could do well in this game. But you should try and try and get yourself fit and everything else." And I mean, that talk with Don, did so much for me and for my confidence. Thinking that someone actually believed in me, and he was that sort of man, and so much respect for him. And I can reiterate that he was a great man, great man.